We welcome back everybody again. We are beginning this week Perek Lamed Tes, the 39th chapter. If you recall, we Baruch Hashem concluded. We had the opportunity to conclude last week chapter 38, and so we're privileged to open a brand new Perek today, which is again the 39th chapter. It's on page 102 in the original text, and Mipnei Zeh Gamkin. And Alter Rebbe begins with the words that Mipnei Zeh Gamkin, for this reason as well, Nikroim HaMalachim B'Shem Chayes U'Behemes, the angels are called Chayes U'Behemes, which is literally translated beasts and animals, or animals in general. What's a Mipnei Zeh? What's the Mipnei Zeh? What is Mipnei Zeh? So we'll understand it. So we don't have to, and we just have to see where the Alter Rebbe is coming from in the 38th chapter. We have to see where the Alter Rebbe is coming from in the 38th chapter, and to understand why the Alter Rebbe begins right away Mipnei Zeh, because of this, because of what? So the Alter Rebbe, if you remember last week, we learned that there is, in the Avodas Hashem, the way Hashem presented us the different opportunities to which attach ourselves to Him. It begins with the mitzvahs maisius. The Alter Rebbe divided it similar to the division of Daimim, Tzameach, Chai, Medaber, the inanimate, the botanical world, and then the Chai, which is the animal world, and then the human being, the world of the human being. And Alter Rebbe points out that in Torah mitzvahs there are these four levels, four compartments. There's the mitzvahs maisius, things we do because Hashem says to do them, which is, we gave the example to eat matzahs on Pesach. The mitzvah is just to consume those matzahs. The kavanah is not that important. It definitely contributes, adds, and it enriches the mitzvah. We sit, we speak, and we elaborate and expound on what the mitzvah is all about, what the matzah commemorates, and the time of Yitzias Mitzrayim, Ki Gershu Mitzrayim, L'Echol Ismamei, and the command of eating matzah. That's all fine and good, but what is the mitzvah? Is to eat the matzah. That's similar to the daimim. There's a lot of life in the daimim, in the inanimate, as we learned and we explained the other day in the past few classes. But namely, in comparison to even the botanical world, which grows and blossoms and produces fruit and so on, you don't see on the surface overtly any life, which is similar to the mitzvahs maisius. Then you have mitzvahs a bit more rich type of mitzvah, which is Talmud Torah, which is bedibur. Dibur is one of the rich faculties the human being has even before we enter into the world of kavanah, like we made it clear last week. Before we enter the world of kavanah, of the intention, or the focus, the heart, mind, and soul, dibur, a mitzvah which is completed via dibur, via speech, is definitely more a qualitative mitzvah, like saying a bracha, kriyas shema, prayer, Talmud Torah, and so on. And then you have, which is similar to the someach, the world of vegetation. It grows, it blossoms, it produces, and so on. And then you have the Chai Medaber. If you remember, the Alter Rebbe packaged and grouped the Tzameach and Daimim, which we spoke then. We see the similarity between the two, even though there is obviously the Tzameach and the Daimim are very distinct. But then you have the Chai Medaber, which it's not only there's so much not only movement in the Chai in comparison to the Tzameach, but there is again the sophisticated body of the Chai and its multiple functions and so on. The world of the animal, and even has feelings, and it has emotions, it can express emotions, even though there's not much seichel. In other words, it doesn't intellectualize, which goes together with the fact that it doesn't have the ability to speak, as we mentioned time and again, and we could all easily appreciate the connection between chokhmah, dibur, wisdom, intellect, which was gifted to the human being, and his ability to speak, the interconnection between the two, which is again the medaber, the human being, and again the way it's divided in the kavanah, in the segment or the Avodas Hashem mitech kavanah. There's the two ways of a person's mechavein. He connects himself on an emotional or a soulful connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as he performs the mitzvah, as he learns Torah, as he benches, as he davens, as he says Krishma. The first one is obviously the medaber, that because he's by definition an intellect, he is by definition the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the human being is the ability to intellectualize, to appreciate, to meditate, to ponder. He has the intellectual faculties, and this is a yid who, as he does the mitzvah, or together doing the mitzvah, he invests his mind in understanding and appreciating the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to whom he connects to, again, the great schus he feels, different type of bonuniyot, different type of meditations, or different type of ways of investing one's intellect in his, as he performs the mitzvah, or as he says Krishma, as he prays and so on. But namely, he invests his intellectual faculties in his connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means he intellectualizes, he profoundly invests profoundly with his chokhmah, bina, das, his wisdom, understanding, and knowledge in the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Consequently, as we spoke last week again, this produces a qualitative midah, qualitative emotion, a qualitative attribute, which is a feeling of love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, fear and reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is not just the innate, inherent love of a yid, to which every yid has to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is not just an inherent fear and reverence he's had from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is a structured, or a passionate love, and a structured qualitative love, and a qualitative fear, and so on, of the other midas, which man again was gifted, or which is in the system, in the heart of man, which are usually produced by intellect. We explained this last week. This is also easy to appreciate. Every midah is a production of seichel. When you understand something thoroughly, you're driven to it in the way based on what your seichel explains you. If it's something that you should be driven to it, it's ava, reverence of it, it's yira, and so on and so forth. So that's the quintessential type of Avodas Hashem, that the person invests his chokhmah bina das, his understanding, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, his intellectual faculties, and it produces a qualitative feelings and attributes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then, which is again tantamount to the medaber, then we said that there's another yid, which is more similar to the Baal Chai. He serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu also with feelings. A Baal Chai also has feelings, and we explained that everything a Baal Chai, which means an animal, does, is not just robotic, there's a lot of feelings involved, but these feelings are more innate, more inherent. It stays away from something which is dangerous. It would yira, it would stay away, it would pull back, because it's instinctual. It has this feeling that it's not. It could be damaging. A fire could be damaging, and it gravitates to things which brings comfort to it. So again, there's not much intellect involved. These are more inherent feelings, inherent expressions of inherent midas, inherent attributes, inherent characters. We said this is the type of yid as well. It's a very special yid, that he just doesn't serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a lot of feelings, but nonetheless, these are feelings which are innate, based on the fact that he's a yid, so he has ava mesuteres, a hidden love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a inherent love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there is love and there is fear, but nonetheless, it's not based on seichel. Thus, it's not adequately, it's not that qualitative. The midas are not that qualitative that they're produced from seichel. So we mentioned again, something medaber doesn't have that inherent ava yira, which from a certain perspective, it's much deeper, runs much deeper than The Ava V'Yira Hagluya, this revealed and structured Ava V'Yira, because something which is inherent, it definitely carries much more inner natural potency, because again, this is part and parcel of who the person is, as opposed to something which is on the surface. So the Medaber doesn't lose out. He also has that, obviously he has that Avos Teres. He's a Yid. He has an inherent love. He has an inherent Yira and all the other Midas. Because that's what, again, as we learned in Perek Ches, this is what a Yid is. He has the Yerusha, inheritance from Abraham and Yaakov, which inherited all their descendants at Seif Kaladesh, the end of all generations. These qualitative, these connections, these inherent connections to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, you can see it in chapter 18. But additional to that, that they have, as a result of their intellectual investment, they have their they're able to produce. Again, intellect produces attributes. Intellect produces character, so they're able to produce or to bring out within themselves, as a result of their intellectual investment, a qualitative Ava, qualitative Yira, and so on and so forth, which is again produces a qualitative Avodas Hashem, a special Avodas Hashem. So, again, this is just a few details of what we learned in order to understand that what the Alter Rebbe begins with Pnei Zeh, and because of this, the Malachim are called Chayes Behemis, attributed to the animal world as opposed to the human world, the world of the human being. So before we go on over here, when I say, we say just a few details. Again, as we mention, try to mention on a weekly basis that for all you, for the newcomers, or those who want to again see what we learned in the previous chapter, it's easy to find us just in the Tanya link, or you put Tanya in the link box, or on the TanyaOnline.com, hosted by the same host, but a website which is solely dedicated solely to this Tanya class. And therefore you could follow along with the text and see as well have easy access to all the previous classes, and again with the ability to follow along with the text. So this is this is getting back to this Perek over here. The Alter Rebbe begins for this reason the Malachim are again aligned with the animal world as opposed to the Medaber, the human being world. And like it says, the pasuk when it says in Tanakh again, it's describing the world of angels. This is the face of the lion to the right, which is associated with Chayo. Pnei Sheir Me'asmel, the face of the ox, is on the left side. These are different groups of malachim, different groups of angels, which they have their formal representation of Gabriel, Michal, in the multiple, the Gemara again, the famous Gemara, which says is the amounts of malachim and the infinite amount of malachim and angels for that matter. Again, but they're generally, when they're described in Teiras Emes, they're described with terms of animal and chayis, which is again similar to the lion. And the question begs, how could you describe something so lofty, so great, so spiritual, so holy, so angelic, celestial angels, malachim ma'ila, with names like Bechayis and Behemis, Sher, Ayin? How could you do so? But now we can appreciate everything based on what we learned to the end of Zal Perek Lamed, we could perfectly appreciate why they're called Chayis and Behemis. Because as we mentioned, even the Avodas Hashem as Chay or as Behema is also not an inferior, it is definitely lower than the perfect Avodah of the Medaber, or the Avodah which is similar to the Medaber, to the human being, but yet it's something which as well, it is as a qualitative type of Avodah as well, because a Yid who serves of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his Ava Mesuteres is constantly in function, which means that innate inherent love that he has to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is constantly in function, and with this he cleaves and he wants to constantly connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, the way to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu via being doing Hashem's mitzvahs scrupulously and learning Torah assiduously, diligently, because he knows with this he connects to Kodesh Baruch Hu. So there's a lot of feeling, but yet, again, it's the lower level because these are feelings. These are not avira, which are produced from a structured seichel. Behema doesn't have no seichel. It's not, namely not about seichel, intellect. And so to the yira, the fact that yira, the person's yira hativis is inherent fear, reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is constantly on the surface, and therefore he stays away from every one of from everything that Hashem says not to do, not to engage with, which is generally the 365 Avedas. Leisa said this, Hashem says not to do. So this is very special, even though again it's a level lower than the Medaber, which is again the iconic, the quintessential type of Aveda, the special Aveda, the unique Aveda of the Medaber. But now we can understand why the Malachim are called Behemoths, because they don't make a choice to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what we define, the difference we define the Avaviyah of the animal, that it's not that it understands and has a clear perception why this about the material of fire and therefore they would stay away from fire. It's all innate, it's all part, it's inherent within them. And similarly, when they gravitate to things which would contribute to their comfort, it's not something they understood, figured it out, invested their mind in it, and consequently they developed the ava to that which would again contribute to their comfort. It's innate, it's inherent, and this is why the Malachim are called Behemoths, attributed to the terms of Behemoths and Chayis, because their ava v'yira is inherent within them. Einam balei b'chira, they're not entities of choice. They don't choose their connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Their fear, the reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is natural by them, like it says in Ra'ad the Parshas Pinchas. Therefore, the virtue, the advantage, the level of the tzaddikim are greater than the malachim, because for the domain, for the area of the neshamas of tzaddikim is in the world of bria, and the domain of the malachim is in the world of Yetzirah. So we're going to have to give a little backdrop and a little introduction. We say Elam HaBriya and Elam HaYetzirah, even though we have it in a number of times about the famous four worlds, which is brought a number of places, additional to Kabbalah, a number of places, even in the Farshei HaTorah deal with it. Many mention for that, for example, many times in the Eir HaChaim, famous for the four worlds. But we say that before we go on to that part, let's try to say we could perfectly appreciate why the level of tzaddikim is greater, the level and virtue of the tzaddikim is greater than the level and virtue of the malachim. Because the malachim, they're programmed, and again, not programmed like we said, even when we said with the animal, the ava, they're not programmed in the way that like the animal would be act robotically. No, there is a lot of feelings in the life of the animal, as we know. As we can only appreciate, there is expressions of feelings of the animal, and the animal has even, again, this yira and ava, as we just mentioned, and we explained this again last week. The only thing is it's inherent within them. And similarly, when we say that the malachim don't have bechira, they don't have choice, it doesn't mean they're just, they're robotic, they do whatever they do robotically. There's a lot of feelings, like we say every single day in davening, be'ava, be'yira, mesim shuzel, meshuzel azeh, lahadish liyetza, menachas ruach, besafa berura, v'ni'ima kedesha, a sweet holiness. Obviously, in different nuschais, the kedesha doesn't come with the ni'ima kapanim. In the different nuschais, it does. Kulim kiyachot, einim be'ema, ve'emrim be'yira. You see, there's a lot of feelings in the experience of the malachim, in their cleaving and connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's not about, we say they're not Balei Bechira, it's not that they're programmed in a way that they act robotically. No, there's a lot of feelings, but nonetheless, their feelings is not based on their Bechira, not based on their choice, nothing, not that they have to invest intellectually and produce this love and fear, that this is the way they're built, this is the way they're programmed. similar to the way the animals program that has feelings, but nonetheless they're innate, inherent with them, and similar to the malachim. Similarly, when we deal with the malachim, there's a whole world of feeling. Fakir, it's quite on the contrary. We aspire to the emotional experience which the malachim cleave and connect to the Kodesh Baruch Hu with, the emotional experiences, but yet, in the same token, it's not something that they invested and they produced this feeling of love and fear, as opposed to the tzaddikim, because the tzaddikim neshamas are invested in a body and starting from the animal soul. It's invested in the beginning of their life at least. Invested in the animal soul and then invested in a body, and the body is an ilam haza in this physical world. So it comes with the opposition, with the challenge, and they have to, even though again every yid has that pintali regardless, meaning to say it has that inherent love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like we say, no one loses it, even the tzaddik or that one who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu, similar to the medaber, but yet they're challenged by the fact that they find themselves in a guf, in a physical body, and they find themselves in a nefesh bahamis, invested in the animal soul, and in a physical world. So they have to arouse, evoke, and elicit within them their own they have to produce their ava v'yira, their love and fear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when we're dealing with the tzaddik, with somebody who has this innate ava v'yira, which is similar to the world, the one who's on the level of the Baal Chai, like we learned in the end of the previous chapter. So then they're serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is emotions, there's feelings, but yet, it's not something that you can say that they invested. That's the whole point, that we say something is inherent. It means to say that you didn't need to invest. You serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with it, with that even somewhat a bit of a passionate ava v'yira. I say somewhat because something inherent is not as passionate, but you're dealing with the neshama of a tzaddik which serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu, similar to the medaber. So he aroused, he elicited within himself a structured, qualitative ava v'yira based on his investment, the tzaddik's investment in Elokus, in the godly reality, to ponder and to meditate and to intellectually invest in it, and that produced a qualitative ava v'yira, a qualitative love and fear love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, fear, reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so it didn't come natural. They were Balei Bechira, the human being. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the yid, call it the gift of Bechira, of choice, that they have the freedom of choice to go either way, but in this case he's not only doing what Hashem wants him to do, the ava v'yira itself, he serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a passionate love, a qualitative passionate love. And then he releases within himself a qualitative, passionate yira, fear and reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which that came as a result of their intellectual investment in order to produce this ava v'yira, and therefore they stand so much greater. The ma'ila of tzaddikim, the advantage, the level of the tzaddikim are greater than the malachim, whereby their ava v'yira is inherent with them. Therefore, the neshama tzaddikim are in the world of brio, and neshama malachim mitzid. And at this point, let's try to give a little bit of elaborate. Now, I don't want to elaborate much because we spoke about this. We spoke about this in the end of chapter Tesayim, whereby the Alter Rebbe elaborates on this very point which we are speaking and dealing with today. So I will try not to elaborate too much, because as mentioned before, it is so easy with this website tanyaonline.com to go to literally within seconds. You can see the chapter Tezayim, 16th chapter, and it's towards the end of the 16th chapter, and as well. This is the way the 16th chapter culminates. So if you go to the second to the last, and namely the last class of the 16th chapter, you can see what is this idea of Elam Abriya, Elam Yitzira. So, or what is it? In what way does it connect to this idea of the levels of feelings that a Yid expresses to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his connection and his service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we try to at least say this again in a somewhat structured manner over here as well, because we're learning about it. Alter Rebbe deals with this at this time. So so we know there's the four elements. There's elam of Atzilus, and then Bria, and Yetzira, and Asiyas. Atzilus is an elam which is Kulei Elokus Lo Yigur Chara. It says this is referring to Atzilus. It's all about a world which is completely infused with the Ein Sof, with the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yet you cannot say this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because when you say Eilam, as the Gemara says, Eilam is Melashon Hel of the Hester, it conceals the reality of God by definition of every single Eilam. And we know Atzilus is even higher than Eilam Haba, higher than Gan Eden. Gan Eden, the beginning of Gan Eden begins in Eilam Abriya, as we spoke then as well. We'll be able to appreciate it again as we learn this very chapter. Atzilus is Etzli B'Samachlai. It's close. Everything of Atzilus reflects the Ein Sof, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there is Chochmah, there is Bina, like every Eilam has the 10 Sfiros. The reason why, the Rebbe begins the third chapter, the reason why in man there is the 10 Sfiros, which is compartmentalized of Chabad and Midas, which is Chacham Bina Das, the 3 intellectual faculties, and the 7 Midas. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Yisod, Malchus. We explained then again which each Midah, the definition of each Midah. So the reason why we have it is because Nishtal Shalom, we evolve from the way things are on high. How much on high? Well, there are different worlds. There's Eilam Asiya, Eilam Abriya, Yitzira, higher than that Eilam Abriya, and the highest is Eilam Atzilus. Now, this does say in a number of places that these are just very general Eilamis. There is infinite amount of Eilamis, which again kind of subdivisions of these Eilamis, but we're not going there now. Generally, it does, when we speak about the Eilamis, it says the 4 Eilamis of Atzilus, B'ri, Yitzir, Asiya, which Atzilus is a world which is again reflects the Ein Sof. Everything about Atzilus is Ein Sof. It's Chochmah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ein Sof which exists within the Chochmah of Hashem, or the Chochmah the way it is, and it contains the Ein Sof, and it reflects, and it expresses the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the manner of Chochmah, and so to Bina, and so to Das, and the Chesed is of Atzilus is believable Chesed, and so on and so forth. Because it's all about an expression, a Sof in a state of manifestation in the structure of a Eilam. So there is a Eilam and there is Midas, but yet it represents, it encloses the Ein Sof. It expresses the Ein Sof again in a way that the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the infinite energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the mere nature, if you will, or the matter of fact of Atzilus. It's all about the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yet for that matter it does say it has this dichotomy. On one hand it's a world, and Eilam, how does a world go together with Ein Sof? There's no greater antithesis than Eilam, Lashon Halam Esther, and Ein Sof, but that's the whole part. That the Eilam of it and the Midas of it are kind of submerged to the Ein Sof reality of it. So again, maybe at other times we'll expand more on the Eilam of Atzilus, but this is in brief. And then you have the Bri Yitzir Asiya, which is again, usually it's the compartmentalized as well. Atzilus is an Eilam which is really Ein Sof. Bria begins the Haschalas Hayesh, Beirei Bria, the beginning of a Metzias, more of a Metzias, even though Chas v'Shalom we're not dealing with any Metzias in the context of true Yeshus, but subtly, there's a Metzias. There's, for that matter, Eilam Gan Eden HaElyon is an Eilam Abriya, which is Gan Eden HaElyon is definitely a very special place, but we could only appreciate that when you say Gan Eden HaElyon, Neshamas Yeshin V'Nehenin Miziv HaShechina, and Neshama sits and has benefit Miziv HaShechina, it obviously cannot be the God in full state of manifestation, because then you can't have a noah from that. You'd be overwhelmed of that. You'd be consumed into that infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The moment you say there is a world and it's a Gan Eden, a Gan Eden, Neshamas Yeshin V'Nehenin, yeah, the Neshama has a noah already. It says that it's already godliness, the way it's very much contracted and concealed and condensed, that a neshama can have a no. A no, you have pleasure of something when you're overwhelmed with something, and the contrary. A no means to say that it's fitted to you and you could derive pleasure of it. So Eilam Abriya is the beginning. As Chalas Hayesh, subtly, it says that it's already the introduction of the the yeshus which would follow eventually, as we know that in Eilam Asiyah, particularly in Eilam Asiyah Gashmis, the yeshus is really this is really a type of a yeshus which stands in complete, on the surface naturally it stands in complete opposition to the Achdus Hashem. This is yeshus in a way that it's totally antithetical to what Elokus is all about. But in Bria, it's a world of Elokus. It's a world of, again, Gan Eden, and Gan Eden Ha'elin is an Eilam Abriya. For that matter, this is the mother, the domain where the neshamas of or the malachim stand, which serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'yir. Obviously, it's a very holy place, but it's a beginning of a Metzius, again, even subtly. And then you have Eilam HaYitzira, which there's the Gan Eden HaTachton, and then you have the Gan Eden HaTachton, and then you have Eilam Asiyah, the spiritual Eilam Asiyah, and then we have this very physical world, which is the rock bottom. Need not to explain. Need not to explain why. Need not to elaborate. This is Ein Tacht L'Matimena. For that matter, because Baruch Hu wanted a dir but Tachtenim in this very physical world. But again, this already we explained in the other chapters, namely Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin, and so on, 36 and 37. Yet we know, as it's explained a number of times, that the Atzilus, from Atzilus, which was also divided into four. You have the Chochmah, the Bina Das, and then you have the Midas, and you have Malchus, which is, again, even though it's part of the seven Midas we spoke about in the past, it's a separate entity which, similar, for example, one has his emotions and then he has his speech. Speech is already what carries the emotions to another party. I love you there, I speak divrei ava to the person. I feel for the poor person, so I speak words of comfort. I actually take the piece of bread, give it to the poor person. So it's the garment which encloses brings out to the state of the way things are within myself to the zulas, to someone else. That's pretty much speech, action, even thought for that matter, but we can see it and appreciate it with speech and action. That's the way I take my midas and I bring it to fruition, I bring it begolui to another party. Because if I like somebody, I'm passionate about somebody, or I have rachmanis and pity and somebody, and I don't do anything, I don't say anything, the other person doesn't even know about it. Somebody could have a feeling that I identify with him, but nonetheless, it's still something which he's not adequately aware till I go ahead and I express my av or my rachmanis to the other party. Again, if it's in Maisa, I feed him, or I speak words identifying with his pain, his hunger, and so on. So this is Malchus, and this is why it's the end of Atzilus. Malchus cha Malchus Kalilomim. It's the energy of Atzilus, which ultimately would carry over to the Bria Yitzira Asir, in other words, which create Eilamis in general, all Eilamis, namely starting again from Bria Yitzira Asir. So we have, as we mentioned, Eilam Atzilus, which is a world which completely represents the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when we say, for example, the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're obviously speaking about the Chochmah of Atzilus. We say the Bina, the Das, the knowledge, the understanding and knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's try to understand the words. The knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the Bina of Atzilus. Or Das of Atzilus. The understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Bina of Atzilus, because Atzilus is a world which hosts the Ein Sof. Everything about Atzilus is Ein Sof. Not only it hosts the Ein Sof, everything about Eilam Atzilus it represents the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when we say the Midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the attributes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the attributes of Eilam Atzilus. When we say the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the Malchus of Atzilus. Now, it says in a number of places, that the Eilam Atzilus, or the other three Eilamis, which is Bria, Yitzira, Asiyah, each one of them has its own character and what it represents, and for the reason of what part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu does it host. And it says, as an example, the Bina and Das of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the wisdom and understanding, or the understanding and knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it nests in Eilam Abriya, as it says, Mekanin of Eilam Abriya. It nests in the world of Bria. What does that say about Eilam Abriya? That Eilam Abriya is a world that has a lot of Hashem's Chochmah Bina, or namely Bina and Das, intellect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's a world which whoever it would be in that world, if it be a neshama, maybe even be a malach for that matter, even though it's not the standard level of malachim. He says in the Haggadah, the footnote, that there are certain malachim which are Ne'elam Abriya, that their whole investment is in the intellectual, or it's an intellectual dimension of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or it's an intellectual investment in the greatness, in the grandness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and as we mentioned in the previous chapter, that produces a very different or unique type of Ava V'Yira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Bina and Das is invested there, so that takes over the whole environment, if you will, of the entire Elam Abriya. So when a neshama is a neshama of a tzaddik, for example, comes to Elam Abriya or is placed in Elam Abriya, its entire occupation is to intellectualize in the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and again, hence, the midas which it produces are qualitative midas. Similarly, again, we said there's certain malachim in Elam Abriya, but the standard malachim are not in Elam Yitzira, and because what is Elam Yitzira? Elam Yitzira hosts the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the attributes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As it says, Shis Sfira Mikanan of Elam Yitzira. The 6 Sfiras of HaKadosh Baruch Hu nest in Elam HaYitzira. So Elam HaYitzira is about connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on an emotional level as opposed to an intellectual level. Why so? Because Hashem's midas are hosted by Elam HaYitzira. So the midas of Atzilus are hosted by the midas by Elam HaYitzira, which means what? Completely overrides the whole experience of Elam HaYitzira is the midas connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the emotional connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not so much the intellectual. Now when we say a midah without intellect, that's more associated with the tivis, the inherent and innate midas, which again any entity connects with Hashem. Because, as we said, that what does it mean a midah without intellect? A midah without intellect really is only an inherent type of midah, only an innate type of midah. Because midas, by definition, are usually produced by intellect. Again, we explained this in the past a number of times. We can only appreciate. You have a drive to something because you thoroughly and intellectually understood it. Or similar with Yira when you deal with fear and reverence. So when you say a world which is more connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on an emotional manner, an emotional level, is because it's devoid of the intellectual experience. And this is what it means, that the Elam HaYitzira hosts the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the connection with any entity, which is an Elam Abriya, Elam HaYitzira, is solely in an emotional level. And then when we have the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is hosted by Elam Asiyah, we can understand, because the whole point of Malchus, like we just said, is Malchus Chamalchus Kol Elamim. That the whole point is that it produces a separate entity, Dibur, Maisa. Again, we explained this in the past, that's why I'm saying this very much in brief. Elam Asiyah represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu the way he's dealing with a different party, something which is separate. Therefore, Elam Asiyah, Haruchni, spiritual Elam Asiyah, is followed by this physical world, which what you only see is that separateness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is again similar to the Malchus, way Malchus Malchus Kol Elamim, similar to speech, which already deals with a zulus, with something which is a different entity. It's out of the border of my experience, maybe intellectual or emotional. It's the way I take that and I carry it over to another party. I speak words of love and of pity, or do the mice is something which reflects my inner emotions. And that's why Malchus becomes Malchus Kol Elamim. And therefore Elam Asiyah is the host for Malchus. Again, that's the reason why it's followed as well by Elam, which is completely on the surface separate of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zulas me HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But now we're not dealing with Elam Asiyah. We're dealing with Elam Habriya and Elam HaYitzira. And so when we think about the Malachim, where is the primary place, where is the primary state of the Malachim? Understandably in Elam HaYitzira. Because Elam HaYitzira again is about the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where they come to a state of manifestation, as Yitzira hosts the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Shitzvir in Mikanan of Yitzira, they nest in Yitzira. So that is, that we could perfectly appreciate why this is the Mador, this is the domain, this is the place where the Malachim are primarily. because their connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is devoid. It's not because they intellectualized, they understood, they had a profound comprehension of the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which produced their Ava V'Yira. Their Ava V'Yira is innate, is inherent to them. So their mother is an Elam HaYetzirah, as opposed to the mother of Neshamas and Tzaddikim, because it's about their investment, their Bechira, in this case, their intellectual investment in the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which this is aligned with Elam HaBriya, the Chochmah Bina Das, namely the intellect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is manifest in Elam HaBriya, and therefore, when you think about Neshamas and Tzaddikim, which they chose, meaning to say they invested intellectually to seek out, to appreciate, to have a comprehensive understanding of the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore their Ava V'Yira was, which they produced as a result of their intellectual investment. These are qualitative Ava V'Yira. Their mother, their domain is in Elam HaBriya, which naturally is so much higher than Elam HaYetzirah, and that's what he says, that the Neshamis stand higher than Malachim. And just to point out as well, when we think about in what world they're in, what is ultimately, what does it mean? We understand that Elam HaBriya is higher than Elam HaYetzirah, and Elam HaYetzirah is higher than Asiyah. But there in Perek Tezayin, the Alter Rebbe introduces or points out a different dimension to this whole understanding, which again is similar, is synonymous with this whole idea, because when a person serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his neshama as a result finds itself in a particular world, and again we find the neshamas, not all the neshamas are in Elam HaBriya, we could perfectly understand as well, because not everybody serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We just learned in Perek Lamed Ches. There's people who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu similar to the Chayis and Naimis, means say that their love and fear is just in their love and fear expression to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a love and fear which is the innate inherent love and fear which every Yid has. So obviously their madar is also similarly in Elam HaYetzirah, and therefore we find neshamas which enter only Gan Eden HaTachton as opposed to Gan Eden HaElyon, as it's known and brought in multiple svarim. The Gan Eden HaTachton is in Elam HaYetzirah, Gan Eden HaElyon is in Elam HaBriya. And there's certain much Yidden who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu nor with Ava nor with Yira, they just do the mitzvahs without Ava Yira, and therefore their mukkah, even and it's not that they don't have Gan Eden, but where did their main mother, even again the shadish, the source of the neshama, even as I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this physical world, is more connected to an inferior level, an inferior chamber, an inferior world, because they didn't even put any heart and soul into their mitzvah. Not only they didn't even elicit, they didn't even arouse their innate and inherent love to neither their innate inherent love and fear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. They do the mitzvahs robotically. So then their neshama doesn't even connect even to the world of Elam HaYetzirah. And again, what we just mentioned, and in the Alter Rebbe in the end of Tezayin, again, worthwhile to look there, you see that in the end, when we put more of our soul and mind, and in this case the virtue of an intellectual investment, which produces a quality of a polished midah, is ultimately we're coming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just on the surface, when, for example, you do something to another person, you give a gift to another person, you give a beautiful watch to another person. So if you do it and with an expression, in other words, it's very indicative, your sentimental connection to the other party when you give them that gift. So when the other party looks at, for example, their watch on a daily basis after they accept your gift, it's not only they see the time, they feel that sentimental connection with you, who has it on a constant basis, who demonstrates it on a constant basis, but namely, when you presented the gift, you didn't just do it robotically, you gave it with a lot of sentiment, with a lot of love, with a lot of feeling. So the other party, when they look at their watch, they don't only see the time, they see you, and they connect with you every time they look at their watch. Give or take. I'm just going to give a general example. Similarly, when we connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because if we do it with feeling, and we do it with love, with fear, we're not only doing what Hashem wants, which is the most important, and let's say someone is in need, let's say get back to the example, someone's in need of a watch, and they don't have one, they lost it, and you give them the gift. So primarily for them it's important. They know the time on a constant basis. And similarly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the action, wants the deed, wants the verbal uttering of benching and saying Krishma and so on, like we explained. Nisav HaKadosh Baruch Hu like Dira v'Tachteinim. He wants it in the world of Malchus and Elam Asiyah. That's what he wants. We can't perfectly understand why he wanted that, but where did he want a Dira? A dwelling place is precisely in this very physical world. And that's his primary objective. And if you do it, you're okay. You follow the mitzvahs, you're okay. You eat them crackers on Pesach night, or you put on the tefillin, the boxes on your hand, without any kavanas. This is what Hashem wants. Similar again to the example, the person is in desperate need of a watch, and that's what he wants. But yet, there's different when you do it with kavana, even the lower level of kavana, similar to the Chaim Medah, but there's feelings. So there is obviously you're connecting to a deeper part within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Similarly, when you gift a gift with, again, a sentiment of love and care and so on. So the other party, that you don't externally connect to the other party, but there is an emotional connection to you and the other party. Similarly, the more we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a qualitative service, we go deeper and deeper. Again, Olam Asiyah is the lowest, Yitzira higher, Bria even higher, and then Atzilus is definitely higher than all of them. Le Yigur Chara is the world of Atzilus. And again, we're not dealing with stories over here. We're dealing with deeper dimensions within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is manifest in every single Elam, which makes the Elam, again, in superior or ultimately inferior, as we go from Asiyah, Yitzira, Bri, Yitzira, Asiyah. So the more we invest a qualitative service, the more we're connecting to a deeper level. Because Hashem, as we learned in the end of Lamed Ches, or to the middle of Lamed Ches, Hashem wants that as well. But getting back to the, so again, this is more pointed out in the end of chapter Tezayin, but it's very similar. Because if I connect to Kodesh Baruch Hu on an emotional level, you can't compare those that emotional, because it's again an innate, inherent emotional expression, similar to the Malachim, which again, they're in Eilam HaYitzira, which hosts the Midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as opposed to the neshamas of tzaddikim. And again, these not every neshama, but those who invested their intellect in appreciating the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and hence produced a qualitative ava, qualitative yira, which is associated with Elam HaBriya, which in Elam HaBriya there is the intellect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hosted by the Mero, manifest in Elam HaBriya. So they're in a higher level. They're in a higher level means to say they're closer and within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In their proximity, or in their connection to the divine, and connection to God. So let's try to do a little bit text. Mr. We'll pick up on this next week. The domain, the area where the Neshama Tzadikim are, the world of Bria, and the world of Malachim, and the mother, and where the area where they find themselves in Elam HaYitzira. Even though as he said in the notes, you'll be able to see it on the TanyaOnline.com. We quote as well the footnotes, even though we don't formally learn them, we just mention them, but you can see them again with their English translation. But we go on and say there's certain Malachim, it's not the standard, there's certain Malachim as well in Elam HaBria, but it's not the standard. The standard Malach is in Elam HaYitzira. Which again, their Aviyira is inherent, is innate, without Chira, similar to the world of Chayis and Behemes. And Bahevdel should be named, but what's the difference again of Elam HaBriya and Elam HaYitzira? Ki be'Elam HaYitzira mi'iris shel mideisav shel Ein Sof Baruch Hu. In Elam HaYitzira, the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, again we said this before, the midas, we say midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the midas of Atzilus, are manifest in Elam HaYitzira. Levada, which is a vasei, which is Hashem's love and Hashem's fear and Hashem's awe. Like it's brought into Kulim Yitzchayim, Shitzvin and Mekan and Yitzira. They're the six spheres of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are nest, Mekan literally means they nest in the world of Yitzira, But therefore, this is the constant service of Malachim. Again, we pointed out before, like we say in davening, they're constant with a fervor and passion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do HaKadosh Baruch Hu with love and fear and so on. Day and night they do not rest. Lamed b'yira, to stand with fear, upachad and awe. which this represents, namely the camp of Gavriel, Vura, which is associated with Yira, associated with Pachad, which is again on the left side, as opposed to the service of the camp of Michael, which represents Chesed, associated with Ava, with love. So their whole Aveda is standing a constant Ava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But again, because it's something which does not come as a result of their choice, which means their intellectual investment, therefore they're Ne'el Yitzira. Or it goes together. It goes together. The Ne'el Yitzira, which is Mi'ir Shom, which Hashem's Midas are manifest in Ne'el Yitzira. So the whole connection is only on a Midas level. And again, Midas, let me say, in a level of emotion. As opposed to Elam Abriya, in the world of Briya, in Elam Abriya, what shines in Elam Abriya? The wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of the infinite of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be He. Shehein Mokir HaMidas, which is the source of the Midas, Ve'ein V'shedish Lahen, and a mother and a root and a source to them. Ukid Isa B'tikurim, like it's brought in Tikurim, Ve'ein Milah, Mekanan B'tlas Firon, B'karsayu She'el Mabriya, that the Ein Milah, the supreme Ema, which is Bina, again, we spoke about this in Al Trebek, we spoke about this a number of times, but clearly to find the Av V'eim in the connection of Chochmah Bina, you can go straight to Pei Gimel. In the third chapter, the Al Trebek again tells us from the very beginning, or namely the second class, probably the Av V'eim, how it is Chochmah Bina is the Av V'eim, the mother and described mother, father and mother. So when we deal with the Ema Ilo, we're dealing with the supreme Bina, and obviously when we say Hashem's Bina, that's the Bina of Atzilus. Mekanano, where does it nest? B'tzlas Sfiron, and 3 Sfiros, in B'karsayo, which is Hashem's throne, which is Elam Abriya, as it's known. This is the world of Briya, and therefore, because it's a world where Hashem's Bina is manifest, this becomes the mother Neshama Tzaddikim, the domain of the souls of the Tzaddikim, which Eidei Hashem, they serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not just as a result of their inherent Ava V'yira, but B'tchilu Rechimu, with fear and love. This is a Ramaic term for fear and love, Tchilu Rechimu, Hanim Shachas, which come in Abina V'das, B'gdul Saint Baruch Hu, of their understanding, of the thorough understanding and knowledge in the greatness of the infinite, blessed be He. And because this love is called Re'usa Deliba, the passionate heart expression to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in this case to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Re'usa means the drive of the heart. Why do they have a qualitative drive? Because their midas are a result of a structured, comprehensive understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the way they serve the HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this very physical world. That's why they end up in Elam Abriya, which hosts the Bina of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which Bina of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is manifest in Elam Abriya. So their whole, when they enter in Elam Abriya, they continue their connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a very qualitative Ava V'yira, which comes with a perfect, comprehensive understanding of the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as again, it's aligned with the Bina of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have a wonderful night.